potassium, huh? Where's Jonas? Get him on here. Where's the boy? All right, guys. At least I'll start, and if you need to translate it later, I also have my friend Jeff over here. He actually speaks Greek and reads Greek, so I'm gonna rely on all of you and him to make this happen. So, yeah, no pressure. And so basically, to introduce myself, my name's Drew Cheney. I grew up here in California. I've lived overseas since I was 2, Indonesia, Germany, and whatnot. But still, California is my home. And I grew up farming small acreage of walnuts by hand. And so it was my parents and me and my grandfather. And we had one tractor. And we had the old trees that they were like a cup. And you could stand in them so the men could shake with the poles. And so they're really, really old varieties. So they were Hartleys, Serrs, Tahemas, Eurekas, Franquettes. And so that's where I come from. And so now I farm with my wife's family. And the farm actually started in like 1918. And so it was all row crops. And I was wrong. I thought the cherry trees were 80 years old. The cherry trees are only 70 years old. Those are the first permanent crops they started. And then finally they started adding walnuts in 1981. And so that's what we're doing. And so I know there's been some comments on Facebook already about folks saying, oh, you know, this is what you do and it's too much and it doesn't apply to us. But the thing is, everything that you want to do in your fields, it all comes down to scale. It doesn't matter if you're only doing 5 acres or 5,000 acres. It just comes down to you have to make decisions about how you need to have the health of the tree give you a crop that either you want to eat or you want to sell or both. And a lot of people overthink it. A lot of it, the water gets kind of cloudy when people are trying to sell you things. You probably get a lot of that. I know I was just talking to Jeff that I know you have a problem getting good stock of trees from Turkey. I guess they've done some pretty nasty things, it sounds like. So that's kind of the big thing. I already have some questions here that I know you folks have answered, so I'm going to try and go through it. And I might have Jeff step in sometimes if there's any specific questions that I can answer on the spot or for clarification. Unfortunately, just because I'm an asshole American, I'm going to be doing everything in standard non-metric. So you're going to hear everything in pounds, in tons, and feet, and miles. So no kilograms or whatnot. But the big thing, like kind of ground rules I want to start though, is that I want us to remember that farming basically is you're taking a natural process and you're exerting your will to make something that nature does behave in a way that will benefit you financially or nutritionally. And so in our case, for us on the farm, it's financially. And that being said, though, I feel very strongly about protecting the earth and the ground and for soil science and farming as naturally as possible. And for food safety, my rule is if I don't give it to my kids, I'm not going to give it to anyone else. And so that's kind of like my ground rule. And there's certain things when it comes to pruning and stuff like that, I like to let the trees dictate, and because the thinking has changed a lot in years. And just remember in the back of my head, whenever you prune a tree, you're dwarfing it. Doesn't matter what it is, what kind of tree. If you prune it, you're dwarfing. There's different types of pruning, and we'll talk about that. And so, is Giannis even on yet? Where is he? No, he's not there. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, and I think you guys will have this video up for a while. I'm going to start with the questions were already written down, and then I was going to ask Jeff to step in for it, because I see there, I mean, you guys are writing some comments, and there's a question mark, but it's all Greek to me. So, bad joke, I know. So, really quick, the first question I have here, what walnut varieties are being farmed in the U.S.? What are the advantages and disadvantages of each variety? How long do you have? Okay, so primarily what you're going to be looking for is there's two ways of thinking. You're either looking for something that you're going to grow locally, just because you want to eat it or have it locally. You're going to be looking at something for a pollinator or to fill in time. And then most importantly for us in the U.S. market, because Americans, we don't eat walnuts. We eat almost no walnuts. I mean, I eat walnuts. I love walnuts. But for Americans as a whole, we really don't eat walnuts. So the vast majority of our walnuts get shipped overseas. It's all for export. And so I know someone, and if you read kind of like my little intro that I provided to Tio and Jonas, is my favorite walnut in the whole world is Franquette for flavor. They actually look like a walnut. I'm trying to think of something that I have here that's nice and brown. Like it's just that brown, and they're sweet and rich, and they're great. But the problem is with walnuts, because they are the healthiest nut, what makes them so healthy are all those oils that are monounsaturated fats. Those spoil very quickly. And so if they're not stored properly and if they're not eaten quickly, they go bad. And I don't know if you guys have ever had a spoiled walnut, or if you've ever tasted rancid mutton from sheep. It's the same type of thing. When you have that, you can never eat a walnut again. You're broken. And so that's why things like Chandler's, like walnuts like Chandler's, they ship really well. You can shove those babies in a bag and stick them on a shelf for 3 months. But because they're so pale and they're so, I mean, my God, they look, I mean, they're like that color. Ugh. So they're great for shipping. They're great for commerce. But as far as flavor goes, I think all of you that have Chandler's would know they don't taste like anything. So most people, if that's their only experience of walnuts, like, oh, this is great, but they don't know. Black walnuts, if you ever have the old original black walnuts, those are the best for baking sweet things. But you need a sledgehammer to crack them open. I mean, they're the worst. And so that's my long intro to that. So basically what we do is, for the varieties that we have, is since we have right now already almost 800 bearing acres, we need to spread out our harvest, because if all we did was have 800 acres of Chandler's, we couldn't harvest them in 4 weeks. It's not going to happen. Or 1 week. You know, basically their harvest window, you're looking at a week to, let's say 10 days. So what we do is we grow in order of harvest. We have our vinas, we have our tuleres, we have our Hartleys and Howards and Solanos, and year to year those kind of they trade their harvest date. And then after that, basically that's when your Chandlers are slipping in. So we usually start shaking kind of towards the end of September. Usually it's around between September 15th and September 20th is we're already starting to shake the early varieties. Last year was weird. We had Howards come in first because we had all our wildfires and the sun and the weather was all screwy. So we normally go in that mode. And so usually we start harvesting, actually picking up the nuts and bringing them to me at the huller and dryer. Usually around between the 24th, 26th, the 28th. Like usually it's somewhere in there. And we try and wrap everything up by October 31st. So by November, we should be done. So that's why we have the varieties that we have, is basically it's to fit into the harvest profile. Now that there's some new varieties coming out, people are finding better ways, like vinas. Vinas are dirty. Oh,
sorry.
You want to turn the sound down? Yeah, you want to turn the sound down?
Yeah, I turned it down. Sorry.
Yeah.
Someone wants
Sorry,
a
guys.
question.
Technical difficulties. Did it work? Did you get that?
Of
course. Oh, you muted it? Sweet. All right. So with, why was I saying that? Oh, so vinas, they can be, especially older trees, they can be kind of problematic since the way they bloom so early. You're getting a lot of blight and other issues, disease issues, and also pest issues because they're so early. And so now what we're looking at, that's why we planted Solanos. They're one of the new varieties that came out. The jury's still out on those. I have got one block that are gorgeous. You can see it in the pictures. And there's another block that they look like you threw a grenade in there and just they're not starting right. They're all whippy and
I need you to talk a little louder.
Yuck. Oh, I will yell. No, and so basically that's what we use. A lot of the older varieties you will see up towards the Chico area north, and that's why they have the walnut called Chico. A lot of the older varieties had issues with either edible yield, the fact that they were terminal bearing, or just quality. And so that's why you see a lot of those falling. I know two people that ripped out orchards because they were old Serrs and pains. And they always say about pains are a pain in the butt. So gone, they went out. So that they did that. So when it comes to advantages and disadvantages, you really have to look at whether they do well with pollinators, do they do need it, don't need it. In your circumstance, you probably have to worry about that a little bit more because for us, we have so many walnuts around. I don't have to worry about pollinators anymore. In our older blocks, you'd have a whole block of Chandlers and they would put one line of Franquettes at the side to have a pollinator. And now with the number of orchards in this area, you don't have to worry about it. And so, I mean, we can follow up with messages and whatnot, but basically the advantage is, the biggest thing is timing, what you're going to use the nut for, disease pressure, how they grow. Because for us, since we mechanize anything, that's a big issue. If you've only got a small block and you can do everything by hand and make them look pretty, that's not an issue. For me, since I have to go through as quickly as possible, I don't want something that I have to take care of a lot because it wastes my time. What rootstock do you use? So, except for one block that was all they had, the nursery had that year, it's like, we'll take it. Everything we have is on Paradox. It's precocious, it grows fast. The issue is that there's some people who are upwind of us that there is blackline. So I'm going to see how many trees we start losing because it's an older orchard. So if we have to replace it, okay, we replace it. But any place where you're seeing blackline that we deal with here, you're going to want something that's native root, so English. So basically what I would do is I'd take whatever you could get as long as it's clean and you actually have traceability genetically. And I know that's a big issue you have. Because the advantages and disadvantages of each of them, do you have nematode pressure, water, soil? Do you want a slow growing tree just because of where you are? If you have things that shoot up a lot and you're having to prune them all the time, why are you putting energy into pruning when you can let the tree go slower? So it's that. We've heard news here, training your trees in central leader. Is that true? Yes. Here in Grace, we're using open center, letting trees free. What is your opinion about this? Okay, they say opinions are like buttholes. Everyone's got them. And so my favorite is opinions are like buttholes in the fact that they're just full of crap. So my opinion, take it as it is. The way I look at it is anything you can do to maximize light interception by as much of the leaves on the tree as possible is good for you and is good for the tree. The traditional way of pruning, which we did for decades here in California, you make those nice little round trees. It looked like a kid's drawing, the trunk and there you go like that. And that's what they did. And so there's been a lot of research going into like no prune methods. And trees, if you once again, rootstock, if you have a tree that has a rootstock that's not pushing it too hard, and you're not throwing nitrogen at it, and it's growing nice and slow, for the most part, especially if it's a potted tree, for anything you've topped that's a bare root from the nursery, you have to turn it to a central leader anyways, and that can be hard if you're not paying attention. But the jury's out on whether it should be central or not. There's some people, what they do is they let them bush out and they tip them every year. It's traditional. That's the way they've done it, and that's what they're comfortable with. Does it produce slower and do you have to wait for fruitwood? Yeah, but you get really strong branches. So it really depends on what you're going for. I mean, I will admit, I made a big mistake. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try doing just no prune on really young trees that were some Howards. But the thing is, Howards grow. They just throw limbs out. And so this block of Howards, I wish I'd taken a picture of it when they were bad. Like, guys and ladies, it looked like you threw a grenade into the orchard. And the tree, just branches hanging down. And you walk through the orchard, you hear branches breaking. It was horrible. And so now at Howard's, I know in this area where we are, you got to tip them. You got to be traditional. Let them grow slow and then let them go. And the Chandlers, for the most part, I'll point it out in the comments of the pictures that got posted. I think that they should be sharing just a Google Drive link. I have everything watermarked and stuff, so that's fine. There's some really young trees that are beautiful and barely any pruning you have to do on them because they grew perfectly. And so that is I try and let them go to central leader like a Christmas tree. And so basically, let me get a piece of paper here I can use. Let me look here. You know what? Please forgive me. This is going to look funny, but if you look at this, if this is the canopy to the top of the tree. So if you're looking at that, if you have sunlight coming, it's hidden. The only place there's shade is here. If you have this with sunlight, all this in here is not getting any sun. So that's why for me, why am I going to build branches and put nitrogen and take care of this part of a tree if it doesn't do anything? So that's why I like kind of a central leader that goes up. I know this is crappy, but so there's your trunk up and then branches out. Because a tree like this, all that in there, no sun. So that's why I like that. Does that make sense? Jeff, is that something you can translate on? I don't know. Is that I just went on and on. So
so they're asking for a little bit of translation. It might be a little difficult for
no, that's fine.
So what do you want me to translate?
Ask them real quick.
Okay.
Tell them, get in there.
Well, how else can they ask questions? Okay.
It's all right.
Καλησπέρα σας. Το όνομά μου είναι Ζαφείρης. Είμαι γεννημένος εδώ στην Αμερική, αλλά οι γονείς μου είναι από την Τρίπολη, από Ελλάδα. Και όσα ελληνικά καταλαβαίνω θα βοηθήσω τον Τζο να καταφέρουμε να σας βοηθήσουμε όσο μπορούμε. Η εμπειρία μου είναι σε αμπέλια και λίγα κεράσια. Καρύδια δυστυχώς δεν έχω εμπειρία, αλλά θα προσπαθήσω να κάνω τη μετάφραση. I'm just introducing myself.
Oh, yeah.
We grow grapes and cherries, not walnuts. So, άμα έχετε καμία ερώτηση, θα προσπαθήσω να κάνω τη μετάφραση όσο μπορώ. Τώρα, να βάλουμε και γυαλιά εδώ, γιατί έχουμε και γεράσει λίγο. Γεια σας. Could your friend translate? Better from
Clear.
Okay. So what did you want me to translate here?
Well, and so were you asking more about just specifics on the what I was talking about, the pruning or what?
Λέει, άμα έχετε ερωτήσεις για το κλάδαμα του δέντρου, των καρυδιών.
voice. Giannis, get on there.
Well, a couple of them had pointed out they don't understand. They don't speak English, so they probably didn't pick up anything that you had mentioned here about the. Okay, here's one question.
Okay.
I didn't pick that up. Okay. What do you do the first year? How do you handle them the first year and then the second year? Like, what do you do first year? The questions are coming in pretty quickly here, but
so for the first year, because the trees that we get from the nursery, they're called bare roots. So the nursery pulls them out of the ground, they take out and they chop the top off.
Okay. Το πρώτο χρόνο, ξέρεις, ξέρεις, μόνο είναι η ρίζα μόνο, το rhizome, like the rhizosome. And what do they do?
So basically, since they pull them out, they just chop the top, so you get a stick.
Ξέρεις, κόβουν το αποκεφαλόν and you plant it, right? Και το φυτρώνετε.
Yes, plant it in, so we dip it, we plant it, and then what I do that first year, I want to make sure that there's some buds growing, and I want to plant it so that you want to watch for there's a bud on the wind side where the wind blows. You usually want that to be your primary. And after that, after the end of the first year when we prune, we'll take everything else off and just leave that one.
Just one?
Yep.
Okay. Πρέπει να μείνετε σίγουροι ότι θα φυτρώσουν πολλά, αλλά θα κρατήσετε μόνο just one branch, μία κλαδιά ας πούμε, στην πλευρά που that faces the wind?
That faces, yeah, because that way, if you have the stick and the wind comes from this way, you want a branch coming so the wind
okay.
If not, it leans.
Okay. Ναι. Άμα θέλετε περισσότερος αέρας να έρχεται από εδώ και η κλαδιά να είναι, ξέρεις, δεν ξέρω ακριβώς πώς να το εξηγήσω, αλλά να είναι προς από που έρχεται ο άνεμος. Για να, άμα θα σπρώχνει την κλαδιά από εδώ, θα έχει και το ξύλο εδώ και θα το προστατεύει. Δεν θα σπάσει, ας πούμε. Yeah? That's the first year?
That's the first year.
Πρώτος χρόνος.
Okay, so then the second year, that branch that's going up now, that's going to be your primary.
Θα αφήσετε όμως μόνο μία. Στο τέλος του χρονιού, end of the year, they take the rest of them off?
Yep.
Okay, θα αφήσετε μόνο μία κλαδιά να μεγαλώνει.
Yep.
Δεύτερη χρονιά.
So the second one, now, that's what you want to do. If any other, like, shoots come out where you don't want them, chop them off.
Yeah.
And that other one, now, what you're trying to do is you don't want to feed the tree too much. You want to let it grow up because it's becoming the tree. And so they're basically, you just want to make sure
what do you mean you don't feed it?
Because some people want to put on a bunch of nitrogen and fertilizer and stuff. That thing will shoot up 20 feet in the air and it will go.
This is the second year?
Yep.
So don't put a lot of fertilizer in the second year?
No. Usually if they've never planted anything there before, or if they had like a vegetable garden, I wouldn't put any fertilizer.
Okay. Ο Drews λέει να μην βάλετε πολύ λίπασμα τη δεύτερη χρονιά. Αυτό πρέπει να μεγαλώσει μόνο του. It has to grow by itself, right? Okay. Τη δεύτερη χρονιά, όχι πολύ λίπασμα για να μεγαλώσει μόνο του. Άμα θα βάλετε πολύ λίπασμα, if they put a lot of fertilizer, the roots are
well, the tree shoots up and it'll basically it can't support itself, it'll fall over.
Okay. Θα μεγαλώσει πολύ γρήγορα και μετά δεν θα μπορεί να στερεθεί καλά, θα πέσει. So, όχι πολύ λίπασμα το δεύτερο χρόνο.
Because the biggest thing that they want to concentrate on, I would say for the first 3 years, is you want to create a steady base. So you want girth, you want strength, you don't want height, you don't want vegetative growth.
Γενικώς λέει τα πρώτα 3 χρόνια να προσπαθήσετε να μεγαλώσετε τη βάση του δέντρου. Να μην σας ενδιαφέρει πολύ, δεν θέλετε να γίνει και πολύ μεγάλο στο ύψος, ας πούμε, να γίνει χοντρό από κάτω το δέντρο.
And it's really important. That's on trees that they got from a nursery that got tipped, that topped. They cut off the terminal bud. And explain, because to me, I'm assuming they understand that the tip of the branch of any walnut branch, there's enzymes in there, and that's next year's growth.
Yeah, so I'm sorry. So repeat it to me again. I'm sorry.
So basically, I'm assuming that everything I'm talking about is if they got a tree from a nursery where that terminal bud was chopped. So that's why you're letting this new one be the terminal bud.
Well, that's on the rootstock, right?
Well, you get your rootstock. No, then they have the graft on top. And that's the budwood from that graft.
Yeah.
So, but whatever variety they want. So it's Chandler, whatever's been put on the rootstock. If they got something from the nursery that's in a pot, so it's just a little plant, looks like a little baby tree that never got chopped, their job's actually easier. Put it in the ground, leave it alone, let it grow, and it's basically like growing any other tree then, because it already knows how it wants to go. And that, I wouldn't prune the crap out of it. That's where you gotta leave it alone.
Okay, but I mean, I'm sorry for my, because I'm used to grapes,
Yeah.
but you have a rootstock that you grow.
So yeah,
Then, and you're saying you
what
cut
they'll
it.
do is the nursery they'll drew rootstocks. They'll chop that. They'll take a scion of whatever variety they want. So Chandler, they'll pop that on. They'll let that grow a bit, and then when I order the trees, they come in. They chop the top of it off. So all I have is a tree about this high. It's like root ball.
What the sign?
And yeah, it's a root ball and a rootstock, and then you'll see where the graft is, and they'll probably be about this much or so of growth, and they chop it because that way they're not going to give you 20-foot tall trees. So they chop them. So now you have to let that bud grow, and that's going to be your new tree.
Okay. So what do you want me to tell them? All of that?
Well, no. So the biggest thing is for them if they get bare root trees that have been chopped. Everything we talked about is what they have to do. If they get it in a pot and it looks like a baby plant and it never got the top cut off, their job is easier. They should just let it go.
Do they plant rootstock or do they plant grafted trees? I don't know.
I don't know. I think that there's people who do both.
Okay. Okay. Με όλο αυτό ο Drews είπε ότι δεν ξέρουμε τα δέντρα που αγοράζετε εάν είναι μόνο η ρίζα, καθαρή ρίζα χωρίς το I don't know how to say scion, that's the problem. Άμα δεν έχουν ξέρεις
Just the variety they want.
Ναι, δεν βάλει Chandler ή κάτι παραπάνω. It just, you need it to be
Well,
the rootstock has to be topped, right?
They'll cut the rootstock and then they'll cut the scion after it's already been grafted. That's the nursery will do. They'll give it to you chopped.
Okay, and then does it branch? Another one branches up and grows and becomes your tree? Okay. Okay. Why don't we move on to a different question? Tell us about pruning or no pruning method.
So the pruning or no pruning.
Do you prune or you don't prune?
So everyone at the beginning.
Τώρα μιλάμε για το κλάδεμα.
Everyone has to prune.
Ναι. Όλοι πρέπει να κλαδεύουμε, λέει.
But the type of pruning is what's different. So this is, I want them to understand when I say heading or thinning cuts. So a heading cut, so if this is the branch, if the branch starts here and this is the end, if I chop it off, that's a heading cut. And if I cut it right where it joins to my body, so the whole branch is gone, that's a thinning cut. And so, to me, there's times and places for both. I try and not do heading cuts. I try and only do thinning cuts when I can, except for varieties that if they grow too fast, then you have to head them.
Heading means just like the apical.
So basically, the heading. So like a heading cut just means that. So basically, if the branch here's where it comes in, like if I'm the trunk and the branch is here, if I cut even just a half inch to even down to here, even if I leave 4 inches out with a bud on it, that's a heading cut. If I cut that branch all the way off, so it will never grow again, that's a thinning cut.
Okay.
And so I try and do thinning as much as possible.
Oh, where do your new branches come from then?
They don't. So what you're trying to do, the tree, as it grows up, it's making its own branches. You want to leave them alone. This is basically, I'm only cutting branches that I don't want.
Okay. Τώρα μιλάμε για το κλάδεμα και λέει ότι προσπαθεί να κλαδεύει τα δέντρα. You want thinning cuts or you like?
That's what I like.
Του αρέσει να you basically cut the entire branch
off.
Ναι, λέει να κόβεται όλη την κλάδα. Γιατί όταν αυτό θα μεγαλώσει και θα γίνει πιο μεγάλο, θα ξαναφυτρώσουν από πάνω. Αλλά δεν του αρέσει να κόβει, ας πούμε, ξέρεις, το μισό. You don't like making like half the branch.
Only if I have to. I mean, there's always times you do,
Yeah.
but...
Καμιά φορά όταν πρέπει να το κάνει, το κλαδεύει έτσι, αλλά συνήθως το κόβει όλο. Και αφήνει και θα φυτρώσουν και από πάνω. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm doing my best here. Ζαφείρη, can you spell Greek words? Ναι, διαβάζω ελληνικά και μπορώ να γράφω και στα ελληνικά, ναι.
Okay, so that's the hard one, is the pruning.
This is how you manage pruning from 1 year to 5 years. Ooh.
You see that?
Uh-huh.
I mean, if they really want to get into that, it's not the one. Okay,
We are talking about...
Oh, foster. That's a good question. We plant bare root grafted tree. Okay, then all right.
Bare root
all right,
grafted,
there
okay.
we go. By grafted, yep.
Some people do both. Okay.
Yep. We only buy trees and root, not the pot. Okay. That's the okay.
You want me to read this real fast?
All right, Dennis, let's do this.
Okay. He's saying that they prune him to 60 or 80, I'm going to guess centimeters. Mm-hmm. Like a foot or two, 1 to 3 feet.
Mm-hmm. And these are Chandlers, I assume.
Drew, can you add me to translate more?
Jonas, you here? Where'd he go? Get down there, baby.
Ah. Thank God.
Oh, come on, Dion.
Θα συνδέσουμε τον Γιάννη τώρα να κάνει καλύτερη δουλειά από ό,τι κάνω εγώ.
It says no answer. Okay, but this is one thing I want to be really clear on, is that for me, you have to listen to the trees. There's sometimes if you have a lot of growth, you're gonna do heading cuts. You're gonna chop them, because if not, they'll rip themselves apart. And so it comes down to creating a structure.
If they grow too fast, you have to do a heading cut.
Yes.
Not a thinning cut.
Yep. To me, and so when I do thinning cuts,
it slows the growth, or?
It stops the growth because the terminal bud has been cut, so it won't go out. It'll push. It'll girth.
Gotcha.
And so for me, I mean, this is kind of a funny thing. If I'm the tree, what I want to do is basically up to about here, so about 5 feet. So I'll just call it, say, 2 meters, a little bit less than 2 meters. I want all the branches to be up from that, because since we use tractors so much, we don't want low branches. We want everything up, and we also want everything up because we don't want the water from the sprinklers to hit it. So that's my mind. So I use thinning cuts. I'm chopping all the branches off all the way up. Then the tree goes up, and then I'm only trying to take out crosses, places where it's going to rub, or if it gets too long. Okay. After that, I try to leave the tree alone.
Okay. I have to probably use a little bit more simple words, and just so they understand as well. Okay. Ακόμα μιλάμε για το κλάδεμα και λέει, άμα μεγαλώνει το δέντρο πολύ γρήγορα, καλύτερα είναι να μην το κόβετε, να μην κόβετε όλη την κλαριά. Πρέπει να την κόβετε στη μέση για να φουσκώσει εδώ και να σταματήσει, να μην μεγαλώνει όσο γρήγορα μεγάλωνε πριν. Okay, just continue with the other questions. Okay.
But actually, going into what we just said, I saw a question.
There was a question about sunburn and irrigation.
Okay, because I see that how much water do you use per acre for medium soil? So, again, the best way you can do this is to listen to the trees. So tell them that.
Τώρα ο Τζους μιλάει για το πότισμα και λέει το καλύτερο που μπορείτε να κάνετε είναι να ακούτε τι σας λέει το δέντρο, πόσο νερό θέλει.
And so tell them I'm gonna post a link from the UC system, because what they need to understand, there's
do you trust the UC? That was one of the questions.
Yes.
The UC system. Yeah. Okay. So the UC Davis πληροφορίες που σας δίνει στο ίντερνετ μπορείτε να τις εμπιστεύετε. Και εγώ να σου πω προσωπικά στα μπέλια και στα κεράσια που έχουμε, τους παρακολουθώ και είναι πολύ καλή στη δουλειά τους, στο επάγγελμά τους. Basically, I'm telling them they can trust UC Davis. The information is good.
The big thing I would say about UC Davis is all their stuff is based on research, which doesn't always mean it translates to production style. So some of the stuff they have to kind of think, does this fit with me?
Yeah.
But
in general,
as far as
information, irrigation, yes.
But the true research of how the tree operates, they are the top.
Okay, but now how much water do you use?
Okay, so there are ways to calculate how much water you're going to need according to your weather, because the trees, on average, and this is important to tell them.
Okay, το πόντισμα θα πάει, όπως ξέρετε, αναλόγως με τον καιρό. Και εκεί που είσαστε και η γη σας in their soil.
Yeah.
But in general, let's give the general.
So there's
you
two
do
ways.
every week for a day.
There's the old school way was a mature tree needs 46 inches of water a year, and I can show them how to calculate that into numbers they want.
How many inches?
46 inches.
46 inches. Okay, so let's say 4 feet. Okay. So ένα μεγάλο δέντρο, λυκειωμένο δέντρο, ναι, ένα παλιό δέντρο, θέλει κάπου 120 πόντους νερό το χρόνο. Per tree? Or
Just
the soil? Γενικώς, ναι, γη. 1 μέτρο, ας πούμε. Λιγάκι παραπάνω. About a meter's worth. It's about a meter worth of water.
Yeah. About just a little more than a meter. But the thing is, now the new way of thinking is depending on how much water you already have in your soil from the winter. Now they're saying if you start later, understanding the tree has already been pulling water by itself. Now they're saying some people you only have to put on 23 inches, half.
Okay. Τώρα το σκεφτικό γενικώς, is this from UC Davis or from?
It was just this last.
Το σκεφτικό βγήκανε πέρσι και είπανε αναλόγως κιόλας πόση βροχή είχατε στην περιοχή σας. So, ας πούμε, άμα έβρεξε πολύ το χειμώνα, δεν θα χρειαστείτε όσο νερό όπως το ποτίζατε παλιά. Ας πούμε το μισό, νομίζουν, about half.
Yeah,
Τώρα ξέρω, φέτος έχετε πολλά χιόνια και μάλλον δεν θα θέλατε και να ποτίζετε όσο νομίζετε ότι... They don't have to irrigate as much as they probably think they do, right? Ο Ντρούς λέει, γενικώς, τα καρύδια δεν θέλουν όσο νερό ότι νομίζετε ότι θέλει, αλλά γενικώς κάπου μισό μέτρο με 1 μέτρο νερό. Πούμε 50-60 με 120 πόντους νερό.
Yeah, and
how do you irrigate?
Oh, okay. So to start off though, I know they have them there too. Tell them about pressure bombs for stem water potential.
I can't do that.
Okay.
No. They want to know sprinklers or
So for us, we use solid set sprinklers. So we have pipe in the ground and we use sprinklers.
No, I wish I knew how to say sprinklers, but δεν βάζουν χαντάκια και τέτοια για να ποτίζουν. Βάζουν τα... Συγγνώμη, δεν ξέρω πώς θα λένε τα sprinklers.
But tell them what I do. Most of our orchards in an 18-hour period, I could put on an inch of water.
Okay. So, ο Drews λέει σε 18 hours, σε 18 ώρες, σε μια μισή μέρα, μπορεί να βάλει μέχρι, how much?
1 inch in 18 hours.
1 ιντσόν νερό. Βασικά 2,5 πόντους.
And then here's what's important. I use a network here in California. It's called the CIMIS network. And what it does is they need, and this is something they need to see at their university, someone can do this, to test for the evapotranspiration. But tell them basically what they need to figure out is for the trees to take in the water and to have their metabolic processes, how much water those trees use per day. And so that there are calculations for that.
Yeah, that's a
And
tough
I can
one.
tell them, I can send them the links for that.
Ναι, ο Drew θα σας στείλει ένα link από το UC Davis. Εδώ τι μπορούμε να κάνουμε είναι, ξέρεις, το Davis μπορεί, έχουμε σταθμοί καιρών και, sorry, I'm speaking a little bit loud, so you can hear me.
No.
Που μετράει, ξέρεις, πόσο νερό έχει πιει, συγγνώμη τώρα για τη μετάφραση εδώ, αλλά πόσο νερό έχει μεταχειριστεί το δέντρο, ένα γενικό δέντρο, και από εκεί μπορεί να μεταφράσει αυτό το data και να καταλάβει πόσο νερό χρειάζεται το δικό του το δέντρο. Αλλά θα σας στείλει το link και το σύστημα πώς κάνει τη μαθηματική να βρει πόσο νερό χρειάζεται το δέντρο. Μπεκάκια, ευχαριστώ πολύ Γιάννη.
And explain with the link, it doesn't have to be perfect.
Ποτίζει με μπεκάκια. Ναι, ποτίζει με μπεκάκια. Μπεκάκια. I'm learning myself.
There you go. But tell them, like, it doesn't have to be perfect. Basically, all it needs is to give them an idea, and depending on the weather, they'll know what they have to put on for water per week then.
Okay. But do you water weekly?
So, this is...
Τον ρωτάω άμα ποτίζει... Sorry, Joe.
Yeah.
Τον ρωτάω άμα ποτίζει κάθε εβδομάδα.
So, one thing they need to understand too is, like, I saw videos of them. These guys, I mean, they've got standing water in their orchards now. They got a lot of water. They don't want to start watering until that water is, like, down on the ground. So, having too much moisture in the soil is really bad for the trees. So, like, around here, old school.
You mean in the winter?
Well, in the winter, but also, so how long it lasts then?
No, I mean, I'm sorry. They have standing water in their orchards?
Yeah, like right now they have it. I saw it on
okay.
someone posted.
Okay, ο Drew λέει ότι είδε κάτι φωτογραφίες και κάποιοι από εσάς έχετε νερό. How much, like a meter?
It doesn't look like that much.
Μισό μέτρο νερό μέσα στα χωράφια.
It's 8-10 centimeters, I don't know.
And that needs to go down.
Well, just...
Και αυτό πρέπει να φύγει πριν.
But just tell them to think, that's going to be in the soil. It's like money in the bank.
Okay.
And so they don't want to start irrigating too early. So like here, people used to start irrigating in April, and some people do. That's wrong.
Okay. Okay. Εδώ στην Καλιφόρνια παλιά ξεκινάγανε με το να ποτίζουν το Απρίλιο, αλλά αυτό δεν το κάνουμε τώρα πια.
Easter specifically, they always do Easter.
Κατά το Πάσχα των Αμερικάνων, αλλά κατά το Πάσχα των Καθολικών, they start like Catholic
Easter,
yeah. You know,
little different.
Not the real Easter.
Yeah.
Sorry. But true. Yes.
And
but now what do you do?
So for me, because I can test how much moisture the trees actually need, I don't start irrigating until June.
Okay. Το Ιούνιο αρχίζει το πότισμα ο Drew. Και να σας πω, and it's hot here, I'm going to tell you. Και εδώ κάνει ζέστη το καλοκαίρι. Μπορεί να έχουμε και, τώρα δεν είναι κάθε χρόνο, αλλά μπορεί να πάει και 40 το Μάιο εδώ. Ξέρεις, όπως είναι η Ελλάδα, ξέρεις, η Πελοπόννησο, ας πούμε, ο καιρός της Πελοπόννησος είμαστε εδώ. Και ο Drew ξεκινάει με το πότισμα το Ιούνιο, June. Το Ιούνιο.
Okay. And so now tell them, at that point, once you start irrigating, you have to be a banker, you have to be an accountant.
Πρέπει να είστε σε λογιστή, λέει, σαν τους λογιστές. Να μετράτε πόσο νερό it's rain, πόσο έχει βρέξει, πόσο έχει υγιή, και μετά να υπολογίζετε πόσο θα χρειαστεί το δέντρο. But do you water every week though in general?
Not at first, because if the tree is only using that, from the ET, the evapotranspiration, if it's only using a half inch a week, I'll water every other week. During the summer, when the trees are using 1.25 inches, I'm irrigating every 4 days.
Okay. So, πάλι για το πότισμα μιλάμε εδώ, και τον ρώτησα τον Drew άμα ποτίζουν κάθε εβδομάδα και λέει ότι, ξέρεις, εντάξει, αναλόγως τώρα με το ET που είχαμε μιλήσει πριν, αλλά συνήθως, ας πούμε, τώρα την Άνοιξη θα ποτίζει λιγότερα, εντάξει, μια φορά τη εβδομάδα, μια φορά κάθε άλλη εβδομάδα, αλλά όταν όταν θα κάνει πολύ ζέστη ή άμα δεν έχει νερό το έδαφος, μπορεί να ποτίζει κάθε 4 μέρες. And you do, how long do you run these sets? Or how much do you put on at the peak?
So then the peak, I'm still putting in 18 hours, so I'm putting 1 inch. Knowing that I'm putting 1 inch on, if I know the tree's using 1.5 inches a week, that means basically I have to put on usually every 5th day, I'm running that to make sure that they have enough water.
Okay. So, well.
So it's like I said, it's just
όταν κάνει πολύ ζέστη.
Yeah, sorry. No, I get it,
yeah. Βάζει κάπου 1,5 ιντσόν κάθε 4 μέρες. Κάθε φορά που ποτίζει βάζει το ίδιο ποσό. You put about the same amount every time you irrigate and you change the frequency.
Yes.
Okay. So βάζει το ίδιο ποσό νερό κάθε φορά που ποτίζει, αλλά μετά μπορείς να αλλάζεις κάθε 5 μέρες, κάθε 2 εβδομάδες, όσο χρειάζεται το δέντρο σας. There's a question.
Tell them it's really important though. Young trees take less. Do not overwater young trees or you will kill them.
Μην βάζετε πολύ νερό στα νέα δέντρα, στα μικρά δέντρα. Τώρα μιλάμε για αυτά που είναι μεγάλα, έχουν μεγαλώσει. Τα μικρά θέλουν πιο λίγο.
That's the fastest way to destroy young trees.
Ναι, θα πεθάνουν έτσι. Okay, do you use readings from soil moisture? This is in English. Soil moisture sensor.
I used to.
Okay. Είναι μία ερώτηση από την κυρία Γρίβα. Do you use soil
moisture in different depths to define? Tell them I used to.
Δεν το παλιά ναι το έκανε, τώρα όχι. What do you do now?
Now I go entirely off of ET because I knew that the sensors they kept lying to me.
Λέει ότι τα sensors δεν πίστευε τι του λέγανε και τώρα μόνο κάνει αυτό το που είχαμε συζητήσει πριν για το evapotranspiration, το ET. Κάποιος το έχει περιγράψει εδώ. Να κοιτάξουμε εδώ.
And so tell them, I've been doing this for 3 years because I used to do the sensors religiously, shovel the sensor, all the stuff and the readings. I've done this 3 years. Tell them I've increased my yield by 50% since I started doing this way.
Okay. Ο Τζουζ έχει πια σταματήσει με τα sensors να του λένε πόσο νερό έχει το δέντρο. Βάζει αυτό το μέθοδο που σας είχαμε περιγράψει πριν και τώρα μεγαλώνει how much? 50%? 50% περισσότερα καρύδια.
I would have been happy with 20%, but 50, that's crazy.
So, but have you watered less because of it or more?
Throughout the season, less. But my frequency during hot periods increases. But I would say my total water I've put on has decreased because I'm not watering for a month and a half.
Okay. So με αυτό το μέθοδο που είχαμε συζητήσει πριν, γενικώς βάζει λιγότερο νερό, γενικώς. Αλλά όπως είπαμε, δεν βάζει κάθε εβδομάδα. Βάζει το ίδιο ποσό, αλλά μετά αλλάζει πόσο συχνά το βάζει. Και αυτό το μέθοδο, λίγα και λιγότερο νερό, αλλά με αυτό το μέθοδο που είχαμε περιγράψει, μεγαλώνει περισσότερα καρύδια έτσι, ας πούμε.
Okay. And then here, Lazaros asked a really good question. And you want me to translate for them if he didn't already.
Do you use the irrigation or do you use
classic fertilizers?
Okay. Ναι. Ο κύριος Λάζαρος ρώτησε εδώ, άμα βάζουμε τα λιπάσματα, ξέρεις, I'm gonna guess spreading it?
I do all 3. Tell them.
Okay. Ναι. Λάζαρο, η ερώτησή σου για το λίπασμα λέει κάνει και τα 3. Βάζει στα φύλλα, I guess you spray it, like you foliar feed it.
For micronutrients, never nitrogen.
Okay. Oh, okay. How do you say nitrogen? I forget now.
Just N. Just don't N.
Βάζει λίπασμα και στο νερό, ας πούμε, and sprinklers too, right? You fertigate?
Yeah, we put solid, fertigate, and I do black spray.
Okay. So, βάζει στα φύλλα, μέσα στο νερό και ξεσπάει μαζί με το νερό και στο έδαφος απάνω. Κάνει και τα τρία.
So the reason I do those three is the dry it's cheaper, and I can put it out when there's rain coming.
Okay.
And the reason I use
okay. Did you say like in the fall you use? When do you put?
Usually before my first irrigation.
Before you
around like May, June.
Okay.
Okay. So the first
one. Πριν αρχίζει το πότισμα, ξέρεις, ο έδαφος θα είναι λίγο ξερός. Μετά είναι πολύ εύκολο να πάει να ρίχνει το λίπασμα έτσι στο έδαφος απάνω. Μετά ξέρει ότι αυτό θα λιώσει με το πότισμα. So είναι και πιο φθηνό να το βάζεις έτσι. So είναι πιο φθηνό έτσι. Ναι. Πολύ πιο φθηνό λέει. Εκεί ξεκινάει. That's how you begin the year.
So I begin the year. So tell them what I'm looking usually is if they do it the same way for the nitrogen. Usually you need 40 pounds of nitrogen per ton of walnuts harvested. That's per acre. I know, it's a lot.
Τώρα θα το γράψετε κάτω αυτό τώρα. Τώρα μιλάμε για το nitrogen. Εδώ κάνω μετάφραση. Άζωτο νομίζω λέει εδώ. So το άζωτο, how much do you put?
So 40 pounds.
40 pounds. Που είναι περίπου...
So say what, like 15 kilos?
15 κιλά άζωτο.
On a little more than 15 kilos of nitrogen per acre.
Για κάπου 800 κιλά καρύδια, όχι μόνο το καρύδι όλο, ό,τι ξέρεις πέφτει, φλούδα μαζί, καρύδι, όλο αυτό, για κάθε, ας πούμε, 800 κιλά θα βάλει, how much did you say? We said 15 κιλά άζωτο.
For 40, yeah. And so, another way to look at this is, what am I doing here?
With Zoom would have been a lot easier. But...
Yeah, so, because it's really important to see is that we always use units of nitrogen, so it's usually 3 pounds of nitrogen as a unit, and there's technical stuff, but so let's tell them I'm usually putting around between 125 to 150 units of nitrogen, so I want to spread that out because you don't want to do it all at once because the trees just explode. So what I do is I do that first one, I'll do one in like late June and like one in July, and usually that puts me okay. And if I need to feed something a little more, I can do one more time in August before harvest. But usually I'm just only doing it 3 times. So tell them that. So the first one's dry. The second and third I put through the sprinklers because I'm having to irrigate so much I wouldn't be able to put the tractor through.
Okay.
So just tell them I'm doing it 3 times and I'm basically...
Okay. Συνήθως this is mature trees or baby trees?
Yes.
Okay.
Mature.
Στα μεγάλα τα δέντρα βάζει λίπασμα 3 φορές το χρόνο. Η πρώτη φορά πριν αρχίζει το πότισμα, before you irrigate, right? Το βάζει στο έδαφος. Μετά, second one, το δεύτερο το βάζει με τα sprinklers. Τώρα ξέχασα τη λέξη, αλλά μαζί με το νερό. Συγγνώμη. And then the third one, the foliar.
Oh, so the foliar, so basically, so like boron, calcium, manganese, zinc, any of the, what they call the micronutrients. In some ways tell them, I think those are more important than nitrogen. If they have healthy soil, those guys are, the trace elements are really, like boron is really important for bloom and catkin development, things like that. So actually getting their soil tested, knowing what they have to put on, if they're in that style of production. If not, tell them, like basically going old school, like putting fertilizers that come from different things. So things from plant materials, things from fish, stuff like that, like fish fertilizers, chicken shit, stuff like that. like putting in anything that's slow release. Chicken's hot, it releases nitrogen fast and other things, but it's things like manure and fish meal, bone meal, blood meal, feather meal, like so.
Well, okay, I'm going to tell them that the micronutrients you believe are more important than the macronutrients, right?
Yes.
Okay, so ο Drew λέει ότι τώρα δεν ξέρω αν είναι η κανονική λέξη εδώ, τα μικροθρεπτικά είναι πιο σημαντικά από το άζωτο, από το potassium, το κάλιο και όλα αυτά τα μεγάλα.
For young trees, phosphorus, really important.
Okay.
Really important.
Okay. Φόσφορος για τα μικρά τα δέντρα είναι πολύ σημαντικά. Okay.
But to tell them, the chemical companies will tell them that the only way they can get it is for like really expensive chemicals. But if they take care of their soil right, those trace nutrients, those metals and stuff, they'll be able to get them no problem if they take care of their soil.
Lazarus is asking, do you use bio stimulants?
Is he talking about bacterial? Lazarus, are you talking for bacteria?
Like first, I'll just tell him I do for cherries and for grapes. Για μπέλια και κεράσια, Λάζαρα, εγώ θα μεταχειρίζομαι, ναι.
So, I mean, are you talking like growth regulators and stuff?
I think for probably like
Root X and Rooter X and
like biostimulants,
like humic acid and all that stuff.
Humic acid or like stuff that promotes fungi
like
growth.
rhizal growth and stuff like that.
Yeah, like rhizal growth and stuff like that.
Yes, and I use it in orchards that if their roots aren't healthy, I put that in.
Okay. Amino acids in seaweeds.
I don't know enough about that. I've heard good things.
I use them.
Have them try it and tell me how it works.
Λάτρα λέει δεν ξέρει, όχι. Αλλά εγώ να σου πω, εγώ στα κεράσια και στα μπέλια, ναι, εγώ βάζω seaweed. I'm sorry, I'm going to take over this. Because seaweed helps with growth of. It's hard for me to translate it, but it does help with not with root growth, but with leaf growth, with the. Στα μπέλια όμως, ναι, εγώ βάζω αυτά τα stimulants, για να ξέρεις.
There you go.
There he goes, okay.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, especially το seaweed. Συγγνώμη πάλι, δεν ξέρω τη λέξη στα ελληνικά, αλλά βάζω seaweed και στα κεράσια και στα μπέλια. What else? Stuff like that.
Let me see if I can get his butt on there. Come on, Giannis.
He's got two of them. So
I know. Nope.
Let's
try that one. Come on, baby. You can do this. Nope. You're killing me, Gianna. All right. But to me, it's really important when it comes to...
when do you put potassium?
Okay, so that... I forget.
April, February, summer?
I want to say we did it... I don't think we've ever had to put it on. We're not deficient, so...
Our soils have it here?
Ours do.
Okay. Ο έδαφος εδώ δεν χρειάζεται, δεν είναι ανάγκη να βάλει το κιάλιο. Έχουμε αρκετό μέσα στο έδαφος. Εγώ προσωπικά, άμα βάζουμε, στα μπέλια βάζουμε μετά από το τρίγο. Μετά από το τριγίσουμε βάζουμε κιάλιο ή ξέρεις πριν φυτρώσουν για τη χρονιά. Στα κεράσια, I don't remember, cherries, εγώ συνήθως μετά από το, how do you say harvest, but μετά από το μάζεμα βάζουμε.
You need potassium. I mean, like, cause like, we'll put like NPK. Well, actually, tell them this, for young trees especially, the best thing they can do is just get a cheap 15, just, granular, and where the tree is, just take, just a handful, just sprinkle it around it once it has growth.
Okay. Ο Drews λέει για τα μικρά τα δέντρα, πάρε μια χούφτα γενικό λίπασμα και βάλτε κοντά στο δέντρο. Και αυτό είναι αρκετό. It's enough, right? Just a little bit.
Just a handful.
Yeah. Συγγνώμη για την έκφραση, έτσι μια χουφτίτσα ρίχνεις απάνω.
That's years like 1 through 3.
Για τα πρώτα 3 χρόνια το κάνει έτσι. Somebody keeps asking about sunburn. What do you do about sunburn?
Traditionally, we would always go out and you'd paint it with the white paint. I stopped doing it just because people will go and paint my damn buds, and it would make it so they wouldn't bloom. They wouldn't push. And so now I just go, and honestly, I haven't painted trees in 3 years.
Really? You don't do anything for sunburn? Okay, για το πολύ ήλιο, για το κάψιμο του ήλιου, δεν κάνει τίποτα. Παλιά έβαζε την άσπρη μπογιά, αλλά τώρα το έχει απαρατήσει αυτό, γιατί δεν του έβγαινε σε καλό, δεν του έκανε και τίποτα.
And the only reason I do that, though, is usually by that point, the baby trees, there's enough leaves that it shades the trunk.
Okay. Do you do it on young trees? Not even on the young trees? Ούτε και στα μικρά τα δέντρα δεν το κάνει. Γιατί το δέντρο μετά από 2, 3, 4 χρόνια θα μπορεί και προστατεύει το δέντρο από τον ήλιο και δεν έχει αυτό το πρόβλημα.
Because tell them it was, I forget which one, it was one block, it was 4 years ago, the babies were growing slow, and because there wasn't enough leaf cover, we did that just because that trunk would have got
Καμιά φορά όταν φυτρεύει καινούργια δέντρα και είναι πολύ μικρά τα δέντρα και δεν μεγαλώνουν γρήγορα, μετά τα φύλλα δεν προστατεύουν το δέντρο από το ήλιο και μετά μπορεί να του βάλει λίγη μπογίτσα, αλλά γενικώς όχι.
And so tell them for mature trees, though, we'll spray kaolin clay, like the white powder, and just only if we know that we're going to get such intense solar radiation that the trees, we only do it in trees next to a road or anywhere where the sunlight reflects off the ground up to the tree. That's the only place we do it. We do it in one line. That's it.
Oh, no, I see that out in the fields as well. Okay.
That's for the cherries, that's totally different, yeah. They want to keep the chill hours, they want to keep the sap not moving as much as possible. But for the walnuts, we're doing this like in July or August.
Is that what can does? It keeps the sap.
The kaolin,
the kaolin.
So basically surround. If you
yeah.
So it's just clay.
Just on the side, side like on the west side or the south side, the first row.
For us, like the south side, any west side, anywhere where it's going to reflect up. We have one block even on the north side, just because of the way the sun bounces up to the trees, it'll dry them out. That's the only place, and we only spray it if we know we're going to get literally like 115-degree heat wave.
Okay.
And with intense sun.
Okay. Συγγνώμη πάλι, αλλά λέει ο Drew ότι καμιά φορά βάζουν, είναι ένα προϊόντα, το λένε kaolin, είναι φτιαγμένο από πυλό, όπως λέει και το τραγούδι, από πυλό. Και αυτό μπορεί να το βάλετε σε 1-2 γραμμές εκεί που νομίζετε ότι μπορεί να έχει πάρα πολύ ήλιο. Αλλά δεν το βάζει παντού, δεν το βάζει σε κάθε δέντρο. Μόνο σε μια γραμμή κοντά σε ένα δρόμο ή άμα αυτή η γραμμή των δέντρων παίρνει πολύ ήλιο. Μετά μόνο εκεί, σε αυτή τη γραμμή θα το βάλει. Surround, ναι.
Korea Los Katanas is right, surround, yeah. But they said, I'll tell them the paint, whatever's the cheapest. You don't use oil-based. You use got to be water-based.
The paint?
And whatever.
Is there a question on that?
Yeah, so when I said,
a
lot of people thin it by half with water. Whatever's cheap.
Okay. Ναι. Just λέει η μπογιά, it has to be water-based?